Anyway, my name is Sasha Verhaeg. I'm a design lead at Google. I graduated here in 1995, and it's great to be back. So, I'm going to give you a quick overview of how I got to Google, some of the critical decisions I made, and then give you a quick peek into Google, what it's actually like, and then words of advice. So, let me see here. So it all started when my mom escaped the Czech Republic in 1968, and she met my dad, who was not that young, so I drew the mustache. And yeah, it was the whole immigrant story. They melted, they made me, and it happened in a crazy place. Unfortunately, it was New Jersey. I don't remember the exits. I don't remember much. Fortunately, a lot of that has left my memory, but since my dad was an automotive engineer, they moved us to Michigan, and it was a much better place for me. So I grew up in suburban Detroit, had a pretty non-traditional upbringing, I guess. I was always into these weird and random things. My parents didn't really know what to do with me. I was always interested in lifting up rocks and looking at things and being very curious. Can you guys hear me? I feel like it's going in and out. Yeah. You know why? Okay. So I went to a school called the Model High School, which was based on Joseph Campbell's theory that if you follow your bliss, you will learn as much as you can. And so if you follow your passions, that's the best way to learn. And I'm a big advocate of that. So consequently, I built a kiln in our backyard my junior year. I designed a house for a project my senior year, and I like to walk around Cranbrook, which I didn't know at the time is a great art school. And I wish I went there, but that's a different story. So it wasn't until college that I had my light bulb moment. It was actually TC 240 with Bob Elvers. I don't know if he's still around, but I saw him. Yes. Good. So I took audio production, video production, and then the epiphany happened with digital video, and it was Adobe Premiere 2.0, I think, 1993, something like that. So I got exposure to it. I thought it was the most incredible thing ever, and I called my dad, automotive engineer, and I said, Dad, I know you spent $40,000 for me to go to this school, but I found the future, and it's the size of a postage stamp. It's so small, and the quality is terrible, and this is where we're going. And he looked at me and said, you've got to be kidding me. But I persevered, and I thought I had to get an internship, so the only one that I knew of was at George Lucas Studios. But I went out to California anyway that summer, and got an internship. The way that I found the companies was we had a browser, it was called Mosaic back then, but we didn't really have access to it. I didn't know how to find the company, so I actually went to the library and looked at San Francisco's phone books and found about 10 different companies there. And I made one of the mistakes, I always heard of things, you gotta set yourself apart, you gotta catch attention. So I said, what's the best way? We didn't have really email then. So I had the great idea of writing all the letters, the addresses, in watercolors, because I was doing painting at that time. It's the worst idea ever. So be careful when people say try to set yourself apart, do it appropriately. So that was a disaster. So I learned quickly based on the response rate, and ended up going out there and worked on this title called Recess in Greece, and it was a edutainment title, so that was my first exposure to these buzzwords, which is part education and part entertainment. Wasn't the greatest of games, but I met a lot of people who then introduced me to folks at Brodermont, which did Print Shop, Kid Picks. I don't know if you guys know this, but worked on Print Shop 5. It's on 23 right now. It's frightening. And I wished I worked on Mist, which at the time was amazing. So then I kind of curiously fell into the internet when I worked for one of my heroes, Clement Mock. He's sort of the godfather of information design and information architecture. And that's one thing that I would recommend to you, is if you have a hero, follow them, chase them, and work for free. So you hear a lot of folks here saying, be really passionate. We want people that lean in as opposed to lean back. There's nothing better than going out there and doing things either for $9 or for free. So when I went out there, I was used to mowing lawns, and I made $15 per lawn. So I thought $15 per hour was great. So that's when I got to Broder Run, that's what I charged, and I said, if you like my work, I'll charge you more in 6 months, but I'm gonna work my ass off, and you're gonna wanna hire me. And they did. Kept me there for years. It's great. So I went over to Studio Archetype, and that was my dream job. It was a sort of high-end design. It was the design firm, sort of talk of the town, and was just amazed with what I saw there. And so each place I went, I tried to pull out their core competencies and learn from that. So from there, I learned the power of design, information architecture, and the power of branding. Around that time, too, I fell in love with California's other industry, which is wine. And I started making some, and it's sort of a hobby that's gotten a little bit out of control, and I do that in my not so spare time, but I absolutely love it. And if any of you guys want, are you old enough? I'm sure about the wine. So I worked at Yahoo for 5 years. I worked on Yahoo Shopping, personals, real estate, and also the FIFA World Cup. And then about 3.5 years ago, I joined Google. So that's sort of my trajectory. So now I'll give you a quick insight into what it's like to work at Google. So we have these principles. This is our #1 principle, and it's great being in the user experience group because this is our mantra: focus on the user and all else will follow. So when I worked at Yahoo and Google Maps came out, and they had a new interface in which you started dragging the mouse around as opposed to clicking in the corners, these guys get it. And so that is, to me, the user experience. It's really annoying. Sorry. Would it be better if I just talk?
Might as well. Yeah, sure.
All right. So. The other one that I found to be unique at Google, in some companies, the bigger the problem, let's say creating a new search engine, they throw enormous amounts of people at it, thinking that they're going to be able to solve that problem better, or they put as many talented people as possible on it. At Google, it's the exact opposite. They want to keep teams really small because that's where they feel like people can grab a megaphone and advocate for the user and really push and pioneer ideas, as opposed to groupthink, designed by committee, and so forth. So we start small, then as we get closer to development, we actually bring people in to help us get across the finish line. And that's unique, and I think it's pretty powerful. So, for example, I was working on AdWords 3, which is, AdWords is responsible for about 98% of our revenue. It started with, the project for the first 9 months was 15 people. So I don't think if GM had a project that was worth 16 to 18 billion dollars, they wouldn't put 15 people on it. So just kind of case in point.